Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen demands my asthma inhaler. After that, daughter expects me to pay for her college and I don't know what to do. And after that, man loses it when he has to wait 5 minutes for valet. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to take anyone's asthma inhaler. Too bad I already flushed it down the toilet, Reddit boy. So please smash that like button. And subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Flush someone's inhaler down the toilet. That's not cool, Karen. Karen demands my asthma inhaler. So the story goes, me, my friend, and our significant others planned a road trip for a couple days. We all had 3 months to plan ahead. For context, my friend's boyfriend and I have asthma. My asthma is so severe that I have disabled parking and an SDIT. I don't know how severe his is, but I feel it's relevant to add that he smokes. Almost every time we all hang out, he asks to use my inhalers, and I give them to him without a second thought. Before we left for the trip, I let my friend know that I didn't have the means to be sharing my inhalers with him. As you've probably already guessed, he asked to use one of my inhalers on the last day of the trip. I gave him one of them to use, and I thought nothing of it until last night, 3 weeks later. So my friend comes to me and she says that as her friend, I could have at least given him a few puffs off my inhaler. I told her that she was coming across as selfish for being upset with me over the inhalers that I rely on and pay for, and I didn't understand how she had any place to be upset when I literally shared my inhaler when he asked. She said that the inhaler that I shared with him wasn't my rescue inhaler, and therefore didn't help him, and she had to watch him suffer on the way home because of it. Asthma medicine shortage aside, I really just don't understand how I was wrong for being concerned about my health too. I love her and we've been friends for a long time, but I just don't see how I was wrong for giving him one inhaler over the other when he didn't even bother to specify which one he wanted. So, am I the jerk for not giving him my rescue inhaler? Edit. A couple of things to add. I know it's not sanitary. I disinfect the inhalers every time they get used. I know you're not supposed to share things like this. It's just not easy to tell someone, hey, I know you can't breathe that great, but I can't give you something that may or may not help you. They've been together for around 3 years and they have kids together. I made sure to establish that I will not be sharing my inhalers with him or anyone else ever again. I haven't yet, but I will be establishing that our friendship is either done or on a break until they learn to appreciate the things I do for them, including, but not limited to, putting their health over mine. There's been a few people who have wondered why I gave him one inhaler over the rescue, even though he never specified. Since this was a while ago, I don't fully remember the details, but I think it was in the morning, and I'm not a morning person. I also have ADHD, so my daily is next to me at night, so I remember to take it in the morning. It was the inhaler that was closest to me, and I wasn't in the mood to put forth the effort to get my rescue inhaler out of my purse or duffel bag. Maybe I was being subconsciously passive-aggressive, I understand that now. Maybe everyone's the jerk in this situation, but my conclusion is this. It's just as much my responsibility to take care of my health as it is his responsibility to take care of his. I would never just let my friend get hurt, but I can do that without putting my life at risk too. Thank you all, you've been a great help. Your asthma requires disabled parking. His asthma allows him to smoke. You are not the same. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Honestly, you need to cut this friend out of your life immediately. She's more worried about her jerk boyfriend's suffering than about your very life. Doctors don't issue prescriptions for rescue inhalers for funsies. They do it because you could literally get hurt if you have bad asthma attacks. She may have been your friend for a long time, but our actions always show our true values more than any words. Her actions scream, I don't care if you could get hurt from an asthma attack, as long as my boyfriend is okay. Clearly, her boyfriend's asthma is not serious enough for a doctor to prescribe him a rescue inhaler. Or he doesn't care since he smokes all the time, which is the worst thing you can do with asthma. It's not your job to keep her boyfriend from suffering. Drop the jerk friend and her equally jerk boyfriend. He's a jerk for smoking, etc. while he has asthma and relying on other people to give him rescue inhalers. My daughter expects me to pay for her college and I don't know what to do. I, 52 male, have 2 kids, a son who's 26 and a daughter who's 19. When my son went to college, I thought college would open up opportunities and he was supposed to major in computer science, but he failed a bunch of classes and changed his major to something less lucrative. He went out of state and I now realize that this was a poor investment. I didn't want to make the same mistakes with my daughter. She also wants to do computer science, and last year she got into a foreign university in the UK, which she says is like Stanford over there, Cambridge. I didn't want the same thing to happen to her, so I told her that I can't help her pay for that and to go to a local state university or community college, then transfer. She ended up not going and deferred her admission to see if this year she can get a loan, which I'm not for, but it is her life, or if she can get a scholarship for a better American college. She seems a little annoyed at me since effectively her brother got more money, but that was before I knew better. I can afford the same for her, but it would be tighter now, and I don't want that same thing to happen, especially if it would be for a foreign degree. I suspect the same could happen to her since her brother was typically the brighter one while she just pushed herself the last years of school. Am I the jerk here? You're the jerk. Gee, my daughter wants to go to one of the top universities in the world, but she's not the smart one, and since my son couldn't hack it, clearly she won't either. Good luck maintaining that relationship. You made her give up Cambridge when you could have given her the money as you did with her brother? And you're even asking if you're the jerk? Of course you're the jerk. And even saying your older kid was the brighter one and she doesn't deserve the same amount of money because it's sure she's gonna fail? OMG, what a jerk. You're the jerk. If she gets into Cambridge, you should pay. It's a lot cheaper than Stanford. And you should not punish her for her brother's mistakes, for goodness sake. Community college is not at all like Cambridge. You sound quite ignorant on top of being the jerk. Such a jerk. So you're punishing her because of his poor choices? Also, you're essentially saying she's the dumber one. I'm guessing she's more than a little annoyed with you. Lastly, people who push themselves frequently fare better than those who are born brighter. You're the jerk. Don't you realize that Cambridge, UK is one of the most prestigious universities in the world? It's very hard to get in, so your daughter must be really talented. And you can afford it, but denied it to her because her brother was not a success? A Cambridge degree is one of the best investments there is. And by the way, your kids are not investments. Buy some stock or real estate if you want to invest. Shame on you, OP. Not the jerk. I'm sorry all of these kids on Reddit who know nothing about finances are laying into you for your rational decision making. If it were up to them, everything would be handed to them for free by their parents. Sadly, these kids are a part of a generation who feel entitled to handouts. As a successful landlord and investor myself, with a master's in personal finance and a background in investment banking, everything you're saying here makes perfect sense and is very logical. No matter how bright or not so bright your daughter is, all kids should start at a community college to make sure they can hack it. You'll end up paying a fraction of the price you would for a major university. You've also learned this lesson with your son. If you repeat this mistake, then that's on you. If she proves she's college material, which no, getting accepted into a school does not automatically mean you can hack it there, then after 2 years she can transfer and you'll pay for wherever she wants to go. Super simple, and what any parent who's planning to pay for their child's college education should be doing. A valuable lesson I've learned through life is that you never want to go with the flow and do what everyone else is doing and recommending. That's how you end up like all of these lost, confused, angry, and miserable losers on Reddit. Never let these morons influence your decisions with their idiocracy. This site is nothing but a competition for upvotes. And the way you get them is by making yourself appear as relatable as possible to the rest of these morons. AKA, despise people who are financially successful and or who have actual morals. Speaking common sense will get you nothing but dislikes, which is why that's all I ever get on here. Unless we're on a finance or investment subreddit. For some reason, I actually get more upvotes than most others on there. Gee, it's almost as if the people who actually take the time to educate themselves on how money actually works tend to have more common sense than the rest of the idiots here on Reddit. Whoever would have thought that? Man loses it when he has to wait 5 minutes for valet. So I work the night audit shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. This is one of my favorite stories because of the karmic justice was hilarious at the end. I deal with a crazy amount of problems because I work at a 4-star luxury hotel that's also in the middle of a downtown city and connected to a convention center. I literally deal with everyone, from the homeless to celebrities. This isn't my craziest story, but the funniest when it comes to instant karma. So most of my problems usually happen right at the beginning of my shift. It's when late check-ins start finishing up, but only with the drunk and the rowdy and the occasional late flight. This man was of the drunk and rowdy nature. He was middle-aged, looked like your typical Marvel fan from the shorts, the shirt, The beard and the glasses reeked of neck beard. We all know the type. I'm a nerd too, but the kind that showers and has friends and boundaries. I don't work alone, but was alone at the front desk. I'm 26, female, and he comes up to me to complain. He's checking in and stating valet wasn't there and he's been waiting for 20 minutes. I call valet and find out that he's only been waiting for 5 and assure him that they're finishing up with a couple guests and will park his car. He would not let it go. He starts going on a rant about my terrible customer service, how there has to be something I should do for him to make up for this, how completely unacceptable it is that he had to wait at all for a luxury hotel valet and thought that was the whole point of us being luxury. Clearly hasn't been to a hotel in general, never mind a nice one. I told him I talked to the valet and it's normal for people to have to wait for others who were there first. There was nothing I could do. It wasn't even an amount of time that I could fake being sympathetic for. He was clearly just a jerk. He then keeps demanding an explanation from me as to why he was waiting, now trying to tell me I'm lying to him and they were clearly sleeping or on break. He then tells me to just cancel his reservation. I said okay. The valet was ready for you, but if this isn't what you needed, I will go ahead and cancel. So I do, and I hand him the printed cancellation. He still won't leave. Now he's standing at the front desk staring me down and repeatedly asking me why he had to wait for valet and to admit that they were sleeping. I tell him he no longer has a reservation with us and I will call security to escort him out as he is no longer a guest. He says fine. So I call security and he still won't leave, starts yelling at them that he won't leave unless we call the cops. Man literally asked us to call the cops on him. He then looked at me and was like, "You're not gonna win this, you know." Me not even knowing there was something to win here. So cops get there. They come up to me just to ask what's going on, and they feel bad because they know the dude is just being a jerk. I tell them he literally told us to call the cops to make him leave. Cops go deal with him. They tell him not only are we not reinstating his reservation, which I guess he was trying to get them to do, but he had to call an Uber home and had to abandon his car at the hotel because he was too drunk to drive. The cops literally made him call an Uber in front of them and get into it and watch him leave. So this dude clearly had some sort of power struggle thing going on. He thought he could just pick on some random hotel worker and instead got the biggest walk of shame I've ever seen. And also he had to pay for an Uber, a cancellation fee, and who knows what else to get his car back. All just to be a smug jerk. It was great. Now I just wish all the jerks got a police escort. Am I the jerk for announcing my pregnancy immediately after my sister? Husband and I have been trying for our second baby for 2.5 years. I'm incredibly grateful to now be 13 weeks pregnant and have been looking forward to sharing that news with my family. On Friday, we had dinner with my family, my sister, her boyfriend, and our parents, and we decided to share our news then. I decided to wait until dessert so that we could leave shortly after telling everyone. Obviously, it's exciting news, but I was worried about all the emotions that could surface for myself and my husband. Right after we sat down to eat, my sister announced that she and her boyfriend are expecting their first child. I was thrilled for her and congratulated her, as did the rest of the family. Once things had settled down, I didn't want to waste the opportunity to have everyone together and thought it would be a good opportunity to keep the joy flowing. So I shared that I'm pregnant as well. Our parents were so excited to be having 2 new grandbabies just a month apart, and I was super happy that my kids would have a new cousin. My sister was happy for me, but she left very soon after dinner and didn't stay for dessert. She called me this afternoon and told me that as happy as she was for me, she felt that I had done a crappy thing by taking away her moment. She pointed out that this is my second baby, and when I announced for the first time, I didn't have to share with anyone. I didn't want to apologize because I didn't feel I'd done anything wrong, but she finished out the phone call by saying that she didn't think I was really even happy for her if I couldn't have let her have that moment and taken another for myself later on. That really stung. I truly didn't see it that way. I saw it as sharing joy, not stealing it. I also see each pregnancy as being unique, so I don't feel that it was right of her to say I shouldn't have said anything because it was my second baby. Honestly, I think she might be kind of hormonal. But I also want to understand my sister, and I know I'm not going to get anywhere asking her about it. So I want to be enlightened. Am I the jerk for announcing my pregnancy immediately after my sister? ETA. I'm visiting from Los Angeles. My sister lives in New Jersey, and our parents live in New York City. So here's the real truth. It doesn't actually matter who's the jerk, because that's going to be an inherently subjective matter that depends on your personal views of how pregnancy announcement should go. What's important here is that your sister is upset, and you don't have to understand why. So swallow your pride and apologize to her. You're the jerk for exactly what she said. You could have waited for a different day, and I don't think it's bad that she wanted to be in the spotlight a little bit. Like she said, it was her first baby, and she wanted people to be happy that they're having a kid. With that said, disregarding her emotions as her just being hormonal is kind of mean. Did you see her edit though? She flew across the country to see them, LA to New York, and might not get another chance in person. I still think she could have done it on a different day or time instead of during the dinner. Also, personally, and this is probably affecting my decision, but I don't think it has to be in person. She should have let her sister have a moment in the spotlight. This greed for attention is getting way out of hand. Your sister does not need or deserve an entire day of attention from everyone just because she managed to conceive a kid. Everyone is happy for her. That should be enough. Her jealousy of you also having a pregnancy to celebrate is childish, ridiculous, and narcissistic. You're not the jerk. For sure. I don't understand this attitude at all. I would have been thrilled if one of my sisters had been pregnant at the same time as me. It would have been a blast. Also, the attention hog thing will totally still be fed throughout the sister's pregnancy. Her parents, in-laws, etc. will still fuss over her like crazy. The attention is not limited to the time of the announcement. Not the jerk. You're the jerk for reducing your sister's feelings to, she might be kinda hormonal. That's very dismissive, and you have the same hormones going on right now too. Announcing right after your sister wasn't the worst thing, but it would have been much more considerate to wait at least a day. Let her have one night of feeling special. Have a family dinner the next weekend and announce. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know. Why can't OP's sister just be happy for her? People make way too big a deal of being the center of attention and getting the spotlight. I can't imagine how OP's sister was during her wedding. One by one. I was recently reminded of this story from a colleague. I work in contracts, meaning my department audits signed documents to make sure everything is legal and compliant with our policies. We have a very old system that we use. Think early DOS, like a black screen with white words and you type everything manually. Looks like Pong. So typically what happens is, I would get a contract for specific mechanical equipment and I would review to make sure it's possible in a physical sense and that the finances also make sense. Occasionally, we will encounter a situation where we need to update our system to allow a contract to go through. This would be if we sold an older equipment that we no longer build but had a few spare parts lying around. Or if a client bought our equipment from a third-party provider but wants us to service it since we're the official company that makes this stuff. It's kind of like a car dealership selling a used car that they don't make anymore. It's still part of their brand, but they might not necessarily have software to support it since it's so outdated. Trying to explain as best I can. When we have these types of contracts with older equipment, all we have to do is send a note to a person in a specific department and ask her to open the system temporarily to allow these devices to be added and serviced. The way we send this request is that we fill out a form and we submit it to this lady. This lady is something. She's a combination of a power-hungry overlord and a scared, pathetic mouse. It's very interesting to see. I sometimes play a game to bet on which mode she will respond with. She's very much a bully who cries when she gets called out for being a bully and then says she's being bullied. Yeah, she's fun. So anyways, one day I received 85 new contracts, same client, all for used equipment that we don't make anymore and have not for years. Someone found a whole bunch of them for dirt cheap and bought them, and now they want us to service them. Cool. Good find, Mr. Client. We will be happy to help. Typically, you submit one request form per device. Filling out this form is a bit of a pain because it's a very manual process and a bit time-consuming. I like to be efficient and make life easier, so I did some reviewing and noticed that there are really only like 5 models of machines, 85 different serial numbers, but only 5 types. So I sent off a quick email saying the following. Hi lady, not her name, but I'm calling her that here. I have a whole bunch of machines to add to the system, but I don't want to submit 85 different tickets to you. I checked out and saw there's only 5 model types. Can I send you the request in batches by model? Might make our lives a bit easier than going one by one. Now this lady is notorious for sticking to the rules. I don't usually mind because rules exist for a reason. However, they were also created by people and therefore can be changed by people. In this instance, I was hoping lady would understand that I'm trying to save us both time. Nope. Her response was, "It is unacceptable that you think you have the right to change the way we do things. especially that you don't even work in my department and have no concept of what it is that I do. We do not work however we want. We have procedures to follow, and if you are unfamiliar with these procedures, then it is clear to me that you need training." A new level of jerk has been achieved. You want me to follow procedures? You don't want to understand that I'm trying to help us both? Let's go then. I spend the next 3 hours creating my emails and ticket requests, but I didn't submit them as I went. Oh no, I waited until I had 85 of them ready to go. Once they were loaded, I spent a hilarious moment clicking send. It was like I was launching little torpedoes every time I clicked send, each causing small devastation as they build up in her inbox and overshadow anything else that might have been in her queue. Also, I know she keeps the volume on, so I knew that she'd be hearing that ding sound that annoys Outlook users everywhere. One by one, 85 different requests were running to her inbox like moths to a flame. I waited for the inevitable tantrum. "Hey, I see you're sending me a bunch of requests. Can't you just bunch them together? This is a lot, and it's messing up my system now due to the constant influx of emails and tickets." Did I forget to mention that our laptops are also super old? That many emails in one shot most definitely froze her Outlook for some time. I replied, "Oh, sorry that you're having a hard time. I was just following procedure, as per your request. I already sent them all, so nothing I can do." "Well, how many requests did you send?" 85. "What?" I then put my status to out to lunch. Have fun, lady. I'm getting a sandwich. Am I the jerk for kicking out my wife's parents for how they treated my mom? Last weekend, my mom and younger brother, who's 12, visited my wife and I. One of my sisters also lives in the same city as do my wife's parents. On Saturday, my wife invited my mom, brother, and sister, and my wife's parents to a dinner/get-together at our house, as our parents haven't seen each other since our son was born 6 years ago. I did not like the idea, but my wife was set on it. Our parents have never gotten along well. My in-laws are wealthy, whereas my mom has always been poor, and myself and my brother help support her now. At 51, my mom is also young compared to them, 70 plus. In the past, my in-laws have said some things about my mom that have upset me, but I've tried not to let it bother me. The night started badly when my wife asked my mom about her boyfriend, and her dad started asking her questions about him. Why didn't she invite him? What's his job? But then getting more invasive and essentially implying single moms shouldn't date and making remarks about her kids having different dads. I was already irate at this point, but my wife was able to deflect the conversation. Over the course of the night, they continued to make negative remarks that were directed at my mom. Even when my mother-in-law was congratulating my sister about getting into law school, she used it to backhand my mom by saying how impressive it was, considering where she came from. Mother-in-law also kept trying to police how my mom interacted with my son. A couple of times, she told my son off because he was playing with my mom, despite the fact I was right there if he needed disciplining. I could see my mom was getting upset, and because she was staying with us, she couldn't even leave. I was able to talk to her privately and asked if she was all right. She said she was fine, but she seemed very distressed. My mom has a history of mental illness and has an anxiety disorder that often leads to her struggling in social situations. My mom silently went to our spare room without saying anything to anybody else. I decided to politely ask my in-laws to leave and explain to them that I wouldn't tolerate them speaking to my mom the way they had that night. My wife and father-in-law tried to talk to me about it, but I told them I didn't want to discuss it right now. I just wanted them to leave. I didn't want to talk because I was already very angry and didn't want to lose my temper. After they left, my wife and I started arguing. She tried to downplay how her parents were treating my mom and make it seem like I was reading too much into their words. She also argued that even if I wanted her parents to leave, I should have discussed it with her first, ignoring the fact I couldn't have done that without extracting her from the conversation with everyone, and I was disrespecting her by not getting her permission. She now thinks I'm treating her family badly when it was her parents that wouldn't stop disparaging my mom, and I know she noticed because she kept trying to intervene. Am I the jerk for kicking them out? You're not the jerk. If your wife didn't think her parents were doing anything wrong, why was she changing the subject or direction of the conversation when they were insulting your mother? Not the jerk. You were right to stand up for your mother and ask your in-laws to leave when they were making comments like this towards her. It's understandable that you were angry and didn't want to discuss it at the time, and your wife should have been more supportive of you in that matter. It's not disrespectful to her family to address their hurtful behavior towards your own family member. Your wife should have taken your concern seriously and been more understanding of your feelings. It's important for partners to have each other's backs in situations like this. Neighbor complains about maintaining a hedge wall and then has to construct a wooden fence. This story happened about a decade ago when I was still a teenager and used to live in my parents' house. We are migrants and are on good terms with all of the neighbors since the 90s, but we do have a reputation in the neighborhood of frequently undertaking ambitious do-it-yourself home improvements and in an atypical manner to what locals expect. Our house is separated from the neighbors with a living hedge wall of cypress trees that grow on our property. At the time of this story, we already lived in the house for the better part of a decade with the same neighbors and the same cypress trees. One day out of the blue, one of the neighbors sees my mom working in the garden and starts complaining about the state of the living hedge on her side of the property. We usually trim the hedge only from our side and most of the top that we can reach. The neighbor complains and demands us to trim the hedge from their side as well. In her eyes, as the hedge wall is planted on our property, it's 100% our responsibility, and they're tired of maintaining it from their side. The altercation is very brief, as my mother surprisingly quickly replies, "Okay," and walks off grinning. Unbeknownst to the neighbor, we already were planning to cut down the hedges to the stump so that they could regrow anew, as the existing hedge was very old and was not particularly sightly. Previously, we postponed these works as we did not want to upset the neighbors, but this demand provided the perfect excuse. So the next day, while the neighbors are at work, we cut down all of the hedges surrounding our property to barely above ground. As we're finishing clearing up the trimmings, the neighbors come back from work and were shocked to discover the hedge practically gone. They looked around and realized that with the hedge wall gone, their whole backyard, kitchen, living room, and bedroom are on full display through the windows. The neighbor questions what have we done and why, as they would no longer have any privacy in their own home. My mom, without missing a beat, replies, "We fixed the problem. The hedge will no longer need trimming from your side," and goes back to clearing up. Within a week, the neighbors came back to us and asked for permission to construct a wooden fence on our property to protect their privacy. We happily agreed as long as they paid for it all, as we didn't mind waiting a couple of years for the hedge to regrow. Our privacy was much less impacted. They built the fence within the week, and it provided a good surface for some vine flowers to grow instead of the cypress trees that my mother had wanted to plant for a long time. Edit. People are concerned that the neighbors would be able to claim some of the land as theirs. This is not the case, as the property markers are still there, and nobody would ever move or tamper with them. Even if they did, this is in an EU country, and our land is marked based on specific coordinates and not some arbitrary lines such as a fence, no matter the situation. When the fence was being constructed, we made sure that this was the case. I should have originally specified that they effectively paid and constructed a fence for us that we legally own. My Karen mother-in-law installed a hidden camera in my bedroom. My husband, male 33, got into a car accident almost a month ago. He's been bedridden due to a back injury, and I've been his primary caregiver. The pressure has been too much from my mother-in-law. She keeps telling me to take care of him and be there for him constantly. She begged me to take time off work, and I did. Asked me to send her hourly updates about his condition the first 2 weeks. But when I didn't, she'd get mad and cause an issue. She visits every day, but doesn't do anything to help. Alternatively, she lists all the things I should or shouldn't do. The family keeps telling me she's just worried sick for her son, so I should try to stay calm. Days ago, she called to berate me about not replacing the sheets quickly. I had no idea how she found out, since my husband didn't call her. My sister-in-law called me to tell me that her mom installed a camera in the bedroom to see if I was taking proper care of her son. I was stunned. After searching the room, I found the camera. I called my mother-in-law and had a huge fight with her. She admitted it and said that she was just feeling concerned and wanted to make sure her son was being cared for, despite him calling her every day. I yelled at her, telling her that she's no longer allowed into my home after this. She lost it and went on a rant about how I'm stopping her from seeing her son and that not seeing him will literally make her sick herself. The family called me later to get me to back out of this decision, but I told them she breached my privacy and took advantage of the situation. She said I'm taking it too personally and that I can't blame a concerned mother for wanting to make sure her son is fine, especially since she listed things she thought I was doing wrong. I ended the conversation, but my husband is upset, telling me I'm being vindictive and that if his mom can't come, then he'll move there for her. We argued, then I went outside and he's been silent ever since. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Report it to the police. Let your husband go home to his mummy. Let his broke body self go live with his mama, and when he gets better, the locks should be changed. Mama's boys and crazy mama bears are horrible. Not the jerk. Let your husband move out then. That woman should be arrested. What kind of family is this? Get out of Dodge before you are entangled and have kids. Right? If he's threatening to move back to his mommy, just let him. Not the jerk. I have a feeling she never would have uninstalled it. Check the rest of your house and block anyone who doesn't respect your autonomy and privacy. Maybe change the Wi-Fi. Likely it's a Wi-Fi camera and it'll lose its connection if you change the password. Not the jerk. Let him move. Problem solved. Where's the conflict? The relationship is probably over. But have you not realized your husband knew about the camera? She installed it while he was in the room. Sister-in-law is using me as a free babysitter during our family vacation. My fiance and I were invited to go along on a trip to California for a week. I do not have my kids with me due to them being with their father and having wrestling tournaments that they cannot miss. Already spent hundreds on non-refundable tickets for them to participate. We drove here with his family, so I was already quite exhausted when getting to the resort after having listened to an 8-month-old scream practically the entire ride, 23 hours. But they insisted we go with them for the drive to swap off driving and sightseeing. We were crammed in this vehicle like sardines because on the floor was their family dogs, a 75-pound bull mastiff with her 2 puppies. So yes, dog crap was also present. They were quick to clean it up, but still, the car was putrid. When we get to the resort, I quickly noticed how I was seen as a built-in babysitter for my fiance's sister's 8-month-old daughter. Every time my future sister-in-law and her husband wanted to take a shower or swim or eat, or even if they just didn't feel like holding her, the kid was thrown in my lap basically, every single time. There are 5 other adults here, but they claimed that the kid only wanted me. I can't exactly argue it because at this point I had held the baby so much that she did put her arms out for me quite often, even in passing in the hallway. But it hit a point where I was getting tired. I was in the pool yesterday, and my future sister-in-law gets in and within 5 minutes passes the baby off to me. I hand her back maybe 10 minutes later, claiming I needed to use the restroom and stay indoors. Maybe 15 minutes later, they come inside and pass the baby off to me again, saying they need to go shower and ask me to bring the baby into them in 10 minutes. After I pass the baby off to them, I lock myself in the room and I've barely left since. My fiance comes in here a bit ago and tells me we are all going out to eat, and I told him I didn't feel like going and becoming a high chair to the baby while her parents ate. As it is, I've already held this kid more than enough and had several drinks spilled on me because of her octopus arms. He said I can't just sit up here to avoid holding the baby and that I'm wasting the trip all because I won't say no. Half the time they don't ask though. The baby is practically tossed to me. Am I the jerk? Not gonna lie, I would have flown home already. Not the jerk. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.